Okay, step four, recognizing what the occupation has to, well, termination of the occupation. There's a ton of details that I'm going to just glance over because I just want people to start to understand what's really going on. Do understand this. As long as this military occupation exists, the General Council of the military has total and complete power over everything in our lives. They only have to maintain human rights pursuant to the Geneva Convention. Other than that, or international humanitarian rights, and under international humanitarian rights, that means they can't just lock you in a dungeon and burn you at the stake. They can't do anything like that unless you are guilty of treason or something to that nature, insurrection. But they can't. They just have to maintain your human rights. They do not have to maintain your economic rights. And that's the basis of why the occupation is in its place. So they turned everything into commercial. Everything is under commerce. So those of us who study straw man, commercial paper, the straw account, and all that stuff, they created commercial paper so they can have absolute jurisdiction over commercial, anything that's not real. Anything that is real, they don't have complete jurisdiction over. They are just the trustee of whatever is in the land. That's it. So let me break down and just speak of the occupying territory and kind of how it functions in the regards of what would terminate it. So here we go. Let's share this here. Okay, 11322. Duration of GC obligations in the case of an occupied territory. In the home of the territorial parties to the conflict, the application of the GC shall cease on the general close of the military operations. So basically, once the troops are moved out, the occupation ends. In the case of occupied territories, the application of the GCs shall cease 1 year after the general close of military operations. However, the occupying power shall be bound for the duration of the occupation to extend that such state exercises the functions of government in such territory by the provisions of the following articles of the GC. And these are all reference to humanitarian treatment and what they have to do, but this is the big line. The 1 year time limit for the cessation of the application of the GC, apart from provisions that continue to apply to the extent that the occupying power exercises the functions of government in occupied territory, was proposed to account for situations like those of Germany and Japan after World War II. The API provides that the 1949 Geneva Conventions and the API shall cease to apply in the case of occupied territories on the termination of the occupation. Coalition partners that are occupying powers and parties of the API would be bound by this rule. It doesn't make a lot of sense to everybody, but basically it's saying that once the military powers are out, then the occupation only remains if necessary. In any case, individuals entitled to GC protection who remain in the custody of the occupying power following the end of the occupation retain the protection until their release, repatriation, or reestablishment. Now, that's for all the people that have tried to do straw man or anything like that to get free. This is exactly what you must do under the military jurisdiction. You must repatriate, reestablish, or be released from the occupation. In addition, it may be appropriate following the end of the occupation to continue to apply, by analogy, certain rules from the law of belligerent occupation, even if such rules do not apply as a matter of law. So the occupation, basically, you get yourself free from the system, which is what I've done. I'm supposed to be free, and all they have to do is issue my passport, but they won't do it. Because if I am completely repatriated as I had put into my application, then they have no more power over me. At least that's my interpretation. Now, that 1 year term limit is proven here. And this is all recorded in the Federal Registry. So this is, again, it's not my stuff. This is what is out there. And this is where it basically shows that all of them are involved in this, because this is something signed off by Trump. It says on November 14th, well, first of all, notice of November 12th, 2020, continuation of national emergencies with respect to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Now, everybody knows that that was debunked as being 100% false. But here on November 12th, there's a continuation filed for national emergency. And what did I show you before? Under the rules, the 1 year time limit for the cessation of an application of the GC, apart from provisions that continue to apply to the extent that the occupying power exercises the function of government in occupied territory. So this extension is part of that 1 year time limit. So let's read the extension. On November 14th, 1994, by executive order, blah, 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 the president declared a national emergency with respect to the unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States posed by the proliferation of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons, weapons of mass destruction, and the means of delivering such weapons. On July 28th, 1998, by executive order, 13094, the President amended Executive Order 12938 to respond more effectively to the worldwide threat of proliferation of activities related to the weapons of mass destruction. Now, keep in mind, 98 was Clinton, and weapons of mass destruction didn't turn into a war until Bush. So, on June 28, 2005, by Executive Order 13382, the President, among other things, further amended Executive Order 12938 to improve our ability to combat proliferation activities related to weapons of mass destruction. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and the means of delivering them continues to pose an unusual, extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States. For this reason, the national emergency declared in Executive Order 12938 with respect to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and the means of delivering such weapons must continue beyond November 14th, 2020. Therefore, in accordance with Section 202 of the National Emergency Act, I continue for 1 year the national emergency declared in Executive Order 12938 as amended. This notice shall be published in the Federal Registry and transmitted to the Congress. Signed, Donald J. Trump. Now, this is a original created in 1994. That was Clinton. We know we went to war in 2000 under Bush for weapons of mass destruction. Or sorry. Yes, I think it was, but no, that was for 9/11. But it gave us to go into why am I drawing back? Saddam Hussein. We invaded Iraq. That was it. We invaded Iraq for weapons of mass destruction under Bush. And this has just proliferated and continued on to this day. So why is Trump extending the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction when it was completely debunked that there were none? He just continued on with the original proliferation that was done under Clinton. And again, these are things that when you start to uncover what they've really done, it starts to really it makes me sick, because all they do is lie. They come up with a reason for us to have to continue these non-valid conflicts. And there's dozens of them. of national emergencies, and they declare them as national emergencies, which fits into the belligerent occupancy code under the military jurisdiction. So they're justifying the continuation of military government, and I'll get into of what we have to do to get out of it. But the main thing is you start to understand and see that the answer is right in front of us in these books, but hidden in plain sight. And you have to have a certain level of understanding to start to process all of these tricks that they're playing. More as I continue.